Kinetics has been made in association with Road Race Parts. Top quality, best prices, no compromise. Head to roadraceparts.com to get parts for your racing vehicles now. Hello and welcome to another episode of Velocity Kinetics. Today I want to talk about engine efficiency and miles per gallon. What I mean is, what I'm trying to discuss is how to get the best out of your car and what to do. Now, there's this common misconception that you need to have a super economical car to get the best MPG. And whilst that will indefinitely help, having a Prius or a super efficient diesel engine is not the be-all and end-all if you don't drive it efficiently. It's not what you drive, it's how you drive. I remember a few years ago when Top Gear was still reasonably good, when it was still Clarkson, May and Hammond. Clarkson did a race of 10 laps around the Top Gear test track. There was a big V8 BMW M3, this is how old it was the V8 M3, 5-door, and a Prius. The Prius was driving around as fast as it could. The M3 was obviously was following behind the Prius, not slipstreaming to aid its miles per gallon, but it was behind it, so as in the Toyota was going as hard as it could, the M3 was barely touching what it could do. And the M3 did better than the Prius on the amount of petrol used. Now, organisations like the AA, like the RAC in the UK, and I imagine AAA in America will have similar standpoints on it. Most big ones being, take your roof rack off if you're not using it because it damages the aerodynamic flow over the car. Take the roof bars off, take the roof box off, and then the actual rack itself if it's not in use. Get rid of any unnecessary junk that you don't need in your car. But it's not always that simple. Some of that junk is actually useful. There's also things like the British, I can't remember what it's called, the Advanced Drivers, the British Association for Advanced Drivers, I think it is what it's called. Say you need to change up earlier, you need to slow down, lift and coast and things. Now, I'd like to do a video at some point, and if I can get the equipment to do it, or if I can convince my brother to be mental enough to sit in the car whilst this happens, I would like to do a video of how I drive, or what I'm trying to do. Because I have to wear shirts to work, I've always got this pocket here. Now, I can get my phone to sit in there and you can see what I'm doing, but unfortunately, rather than looking forwards, the camera's sort of somewhere up there, which is not really useful for what I want to try and film. Miles per gallon also depends on what fuel you put in. Now, if you put higher grade petrol in, so in Europe it's 95 RON is the standard for petrol, and 97 or 99 is premium. 95 is what everywhere else would use. I think in America it's 83 and 85. I don't know why they use a weaker petrol, but that's something that makes sense only to them. If you put the higher grade in, there's more octane in it, so the engine makes a better explosion in itself, so it has a better combustion cycle, which then in turn means it's cleaner, less fuel is used, more oxygen is used, you get more power per explosion, or at least that's the theory. I feel I can notice a difference. I certainly noticed a difference in my naturally aspirated Suzuki Swift when I'd put two different grades of petrol in. Can't feel it quite so much with my turbo, because the turbo just compensates for any power loss anyway. If I had a black box on my car for insurance purposes, they probably wouldn't like the way I drive. Now, what you should really do, or there was advertisements on British buses a few years ago, and it really wound me up, because it was bollocks to be honest. Like, we recommend changing it around 1500 to 2000 RPM to save petrol consumption. Okay, yeah, sure, fine. You're going to take forever getting up to speed. Now, that's okay if every other driver does the same, but the fact is that in the UK, and probably everywhere else, we've got a fuck ton of pig-ignorant drivers who seem to think, I'm on the road, I'm in a Beamer, I'm going to get ahead of you, get out of my way, you little European snotbox. Which annoys the fuck out of me. But the point still stands. You don't build up your speed enough. And if you're pulling out of a junction onto a main road, or coming off a very short slip road onto a dual carriageway or a motorway, if you're changing up at those revs, you're not going to build up your speed fast enough. This is where, I mean, if I had a black box for insurance purposes on my car, they probably wouldn't like what I do. I rag the hell out of first, second, and third ever since I passed my driving test. I don't exceed the speed limit, but I use those gears a lot to get me up to the right speeds. So in first, I'll usually go up to about 20 miles an hour in first, because the car can cope with it very easily. Sometimes I'll short shift it at about 8 miles an hour. Depends on what I'm doing. But for the most part, it's about to 20 in first. In second, I'll go anywhere from 20 up to 55 miles an hour in second. Again, if I'm with my car, after about 5,500 RPM, there's no point in continuing to rev it because there's no more power for the engine to give. You're just making more noise, which I've done a couple of times, which I don't deny it's quite fun making the car make that noise, but there's no point. You're just burning fuel unnecessarily at that point. And then from third, I'd go from fifth, whatever speed I've got to, so 40, 50, 60, up to 70, roads permitting, and then short it into fourth and fifth. That's how I do it. Wrongly, because you meant to sort of even it out, but that's how I do it. If I'm going to say 30 miles an hour, I'll probably do it long in first and second, into third briefly, depending on how long a stint I've got at 30. I'll probably then just drop it into, if it's a short stint, I'll just leave it in third, because you're meant to do 30 in third as per the standard British driving test instructions and driving tuition, but I'll usually drop it in a fourth just to save a little bit of RPM and save some fuel. Likewise, if it's a 40, I'll put it into fifth to save some fuel. If it's a 20, I'll put it into third to try and save some fuel, but a lot of that, again, depends on how far I'm going. There's a lot of controversial fuel-saving methodologies as well that I don't employ, because to me that they're just not that safe. And from what I gather on the website that I read it on, I think it might have been the Daily Express or Daily Mail that I saw it on. I got it through. I saw it. Stoneacre had posted it on their page, and I think it went to somewhere else. I'd have to try and find the link again. But they're saying that some people, controversially, slipstream, which, yes, it's fantastic because the bigger vehicle in front has punched a hole in the air, and then you're slipping in before the hole in the air closes up again, which is brilliant for your fuel economy. It's basically how NASCAR works. You follow the car behind in slipstream, and when you're close enough, because of the hole the car and the head's punched in the air, you've got the extra speed to go past, but that's not what we're trying to do. But you've then got difficulty of trying to control yourself in the slipstream, because technically the car is not within your full control. If the car ahead keeps accelerating hard, you're more than likely to get pulled along in the slipstream. And if that's not what you want to do, then you've got to break the tow. I've a couple of occasions accidentally got caught in a lorry's slipstream, and it was not pleasant, but more because I didn't like the sensation for me. Like, no, I don't like it. It was more the fact that I just kept gaining speed, and I'd lifted off completely off the throttle, because that's how I tend to slow down as well. But slipstreaming is a dangerous one to play, because if the car in front brakes suddenly, bang, into the back, you've got a lot of explaining to do. The other one that people do is they sometimes throw it into neutral, so get to 70 and then put it into neutral for a little bit and then put it back on, which the argument is, well, the engine's just ticking over, then it's not actually using that much petrol. Not safe. Well, the other one people apparently do is, whilst they're slipstreaming, they'll turn the engine off, which is not a good idea either, because you're not in control of your car. You can slow it down, but that's it. And then you're relying on the car being able to get itself back up to turn itself back on. We've got all sorts of other gadgets that can help improve fuel economy, like stop-start. I'm not fond of it myself. It only served to be an annoyance when I was learning to drive. I still drove with it anyway, because it was one of these things I thought, well, I need to cope with it, because if I buy a car after this test, then it'll more than likely have it on, or it's a good likelihood it'll have it on. My dad's V70s have had it on, and it wasn't, no, his D2 V70 had it on because it was part of its drive thing that Volvo had, which wasn't brilliant, and my mum's Fiesta's got it on, which I don't think she likes it either. It's tough to know what to say, really. The other thing that affects your miles per gallon is randomly braking hard. Now, I really hate, in general, I hate it anyway, not from a miles per gallon perspective, but I really hate when people just start stabbing the brakes on the motorway or the dual carriageway, because that could mean, if people start stabbing their brakes, it can mean anything. That could mean there's a massive accident happening up ahead, but you're suddenly slowing. Braking wastes an incredible amount of petrol, because your car's still going through its combustion cycle whilst you're slowing it down. What a lot of people don't do at the same time, or don't seem to do, that I've noticed, they don't engine brake. I like to lift off and then engine brake where I can. I won't deny there are occasions where I've had to stab my brakes on the dual carriageway, but it's more because my speed's built up. I've gone down a hill that was steeper than I thought, and I built up more speed than I wanted, or slowing down for roadworks that I just didn't see, because occasionally they should warn you ahead of time when they're happening, but sometimes they don't, which never brilliant. Or sometimes they'll just suddenly go from like doing 60 down to 30 and no warning that you've got to slow down. 300, 200, 100, you got to go down to 30, which can get annoying. At the moment, my car is getting 55.4 mpg. Now, I'm just going to quickly go on to, I'm just going to hear a few clicks whilst I do this. Let's have a look. Oh, no, don't want 2 tabs. So, the Baleno can apparently, according to their tests, achieve 58 to 67 miles per gallon, at least according to Google. Now, I say apparently, it's because a lot of the tests that they use are not that reliable. They've been widely criticised, not just Suzuki, as in industry-wide. They've been widely criticised as being untrue to real life, always having the perfect conditions and everything else you can imagine. However, achieving 55.4 when that cut says 57 to 68 is pretty good, I would think, and it just seems to keep increasing. I tend to fill up with 99 or the premium petrol once a month now. I used to put it in all the time, but I put it in once a month. If I've got to do a top up somewhere, do a splash and dash, as in like I only need to put £5 or £10 worth in, and I'll probably put that stuff in as well. But then after that, I put normal petrol in. So effectively, my tank's sort of 95.5 or 96 RON most of the time, which seems to be working very well. My MPG keeps going up. I have no doubt when the winter comes, it's going to drop down, because there'll be a lot of time where it's just sat trying to de-ice itself and de-mist, which burns an incredible amount of petrol. I'm very careful with the air conditioning that when I put it on, as in I don't put it on for long periods of time if I can avoid it. There will be days where it's just too hot and you'll need it on. That's fine. Just compensate for it elsewhere. What I guess I'm trying to drive at is think ahead. Use your noggin a little bit whilst you drive. If you can slow down by lifting off and using your gears, then do. If you can afford to occasionally put the better brand of petrol in, then do, even if it is just for a splash and dash, or if it's only once a month. It'll help, and likewise with the diesels, it'll help. Don't just assume that because you've got an economical vehicle that it's going to be economical all the time. Yes, it's going to give you a better return, but unless you're driving it in such an economical way, it is not going to help. Think about how you change your gears. Don't necessarily copy what I do, because it's not. I know it's not right, but it works for me. I could probably get more out of my car if I did it a little bit less. My sister Suzuki Swift with the same engine, it's rapidly closing in on my Baleno for miles per gallon, so they're there or thereabouts. Yes, of course, if there is just rubbish in your car, get rid of it. If there are maps from 1997 and you've got one in there from 2018, unless your car happens to be a DeLorean and you run the risk of going back in time, chuck those old atlases out, put them in your recycling. There's no need for them. In my car, I've got 2 first aid kits, a foot pump, and an atlas. that's it. That lives in there all the time. And what I do also have, I've got a couple of dusters in there for when the the windscreen's gone cloudy. PPI companies, hate the stupid twats. Anyway, where was I? Yes. So think about what you've got in your car, and we'll go for and do what you can to aid it. The other thing that a lot of people don't do is have their tyres at the correct pressure or uneven pressures. I know I need to do mine again. Actually, I will do it this weekend, actually, thinking about it, because they've not been checked for a while. But also making sure that your tyres have got the right pressures on, because that can affect your miles per gallon. If they're too low, the car's dragging. If they're too high, the car's not going to have the right amount of impact and things. Where you can, try and plan ahead when you're driving, as in try and avoid the braking, try and see 2 or 3 cars ahead, give yourself a bigger gap to react to, so you can react in a slower fashion, if that makes sense. So as in, rather than having to hit the brakes, either do it so you can brake a lot gentler, or you can lift and coast. So we'll leave it there, because that phone call has just completely put me off my rhythm. But you get the point I'm trying to drive at. So just, let's say, just think about how you drive, and we'll go from there. Just look after yourselves, drive safe, and we'll see you later. Velocity Kinetics has been made in association with Road Race Parts. Top quality, best prices, no compromise. Head to roadraceparts.com to get parts for your racing vehicles now.